The 2027 Nigerian elections are expected to be a pivotal moment in the country's democratic journey. Now, several key players are already making moves to position themselves for the upcoming election. It is speculated that some opposition parties are exploring the possibility of forming an alliance to challenge the ruling All Progressives Congress, also known as the APC. This move is seen as a strategic attempt to unite the opposition and increase their chances of winning. However, analysts have expressed concerns about the feasibility of such an alliance, citing the challenges of agreeing on a consensus candidate and the potential of internal conflict. The APC, on the other hand, is expected to face its own set of challenges, including the need to manage internal party dynamics and respond to the growing public dissatisfaction with the government's performance, particularly in the area of the economy. As the election season, even though it seems a bit far, approaches, Nigerians will be watching closely to see how these developments unfold. The 2027 election will be a critical test of Nigeria's democratic institution and the ability of its political leaders to put the interest of the country and its citizens first. Well, joining me on the program this evening is Gbadebo Rhodes-Vivour, a former Labour Party governorship candidate in Lagos State. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for having me.
It's great to have you on the program. Welcome to Politics HQ. Let me start with this question. Just yesterday, the president presented the nation's budget before the House. Just to give a bit of, rundown of what the budget actually does entail. Total in terms of expenditure, about 47.9 trillion naira, with an expected revenue generation of about 34 trillion naira. Particular areas where, these monies will go into includes defense and security, which of course will go up about 4.9 trillion. There's also infrastructure, 4.06 trillion, health, 2.48 trillion, education, 3.52 trillion naira, and it goes on. Now, the president actually did say in his speech that he hopes to sort of strengthen the naira, to dollar from its current rate of 1,700, dropping it to about 1,500 naira to the dollar, and also dropping inflation from 34% to 15%. What do you make of the president's presentation yesterday?
Well, I feel that if in a budget, considering the situation that Nigerians find themselves in, the president is budgeting about 15 billion for more SUV bulletproof cars, as though the State House is planning to go to war or fight Boko Haram themselves, it just renders the entire thing completely absurd. I feel that given the level of suffering Nigerians are dealing with, your budget shows your priority and your quality of thinking and your grasp of the reality of your people. And just seeing that line item, 5 billion, 5 point something billion to renovate the State House, Aso Rock as well. These people are renovating this thing every year. I don't even think Dangote renovates his house as often as the president does. And this is our commonwealth that they are using. It's completely unacceptable. And then also you read out how much they want to spend on security. And then yesterday it was published that 2.2 trillion was spent in paying ransom in this country, which goes to show, and that is the budget of 4 states combined, which goes to show the level of insecurity that we are dealing with in this country. But guess what's even worse? DSS that should be infiltrating and preventing all of these problems goes and starts harassing the MBS statistician general that released this information. And he's being questioned, right? Meanwhile, they not go and question him when he was talking about how unemployment rates have dropped dramatically. They didn't go and ask him, how did this happen? Where is this being reflected in our country? So if a people are constantly lying to themselves and not prioritizing the needs of their people, whatever they plan to budget or whatever it's insincere. And you find that it would only leave us feeling more of the same suffering and to only get worse. We need a government that shows in its budgeting a level of fiscal responsibility, fiscal discipline. Like, we understand their suffering. We're going to tighten our belts. We're going to cut down the cost of government. We're going to manage, we're going to reuse, we are going to upuse whatever resources we have and make sure that funds are prioritized towards the betterment of the lives of the people. And I do not see that in this budget.
Even though, I mean, it talked about generating revenue to a tune of about 30.
Most of that is going to be spent on debt financing. And the monies that they are raising that are going to be paying back from our Commonwealth, right? Because a lot of it is PE, a lot of it is VAT, right? Is not being spent judiciously. It's being spent on things like SUVs, the private jet that is flying around in, and all sorts of things. And this does not even just stay at the top level. It comes down to the states. The other day, it was published that the State Assembly spent about 200 million on an end-of-year party or something like that. It was in all the papers. Now, imagine if you took 100,000, you took just 100,000 and gave it to about 10 teachers, the best teachers in each local government in Lagos State, right? You can do that with that kind of money. Incentivize people to do better, to take care of the kids better, to improve their teaching, or even spend it on providing courses for improvement. But you spend it all on just a day celebrating, as though you are completely deaf to the cries of the people. And it just shows how out of touch the current political elites are. You know, we always, these people are making Buhari look like he knew what he was doing, which says a lot right now.
Let's look at an overview of the economic policies of this administration since inception. We've had so many say that it took the bull by the horn by ending the fuel subsidy regime and, of course, the naira to the dollar, the unification and all of that, the exchange rate. I mean, so far, is this yielding result?
It is not yielding result because the policies are not well thought out.
So you are saying they are not bad policies?
They are not bad policies. They are not bad policies. We have to stop paying subsidy because we find that we are subsidizing a whole looting mechanism, right? It's been back and forth. The amount of products that we are subsidizing does not match the amount of products that we actually demand. A lot of these products that we're subsidizing end up in neighboring countries. Now, the question is, how do you manage that process? Can it be gradual rather than instantaneous? How are you going to cushion the effects of these subsidy prices? How are you going to cushion the effect of it on food inflation, which is a direct cost because you're bringing food in from food baskets and from rural communities into urban centers, and that affects the cost of food? How are you going to mitigate against all of these things? How are you going to mitigate against the higher cost of delivering service, of running businesses? What can you put in place? Now, that is the cushioning policy making that I expect to see while doing this policy. A policy as a line item can sound right, but the way in which it's done, the timing with which it's done, the people and how it is implemented can determine whether it's a failure or it succeeds. At this point in time, this policy and a set of policies has put Nigerians into the hardest period of their lives. Even me coming of age, I've not known in Nigeria to be harder than what Nigerians currently are facing. And at the same time, we are still hearing that you are buying private jets. You are using billions to buy bulletproof cars. You know, that doesn't seem, you're doing things because you say that we're on the verge of bankruptcy, but you're spending money as a political class as though we just discovered oil.
So are you suggesting that accountability seems to be deficient in a way?
There is no accountability. Deficient is being too kind. There is no accountability. There is no transparency in the way these loans are being managed, in the way monies are being handled. There is nothing, right? People are just spending, and then the newspapers will talk about it, and there are no consequences. And it just carries on. In fact, I feel that because the newspapers have been reporting these kind of expenditures so regularly, they've also become immune to it. There's no shame. There's no care. It's like, what are you going to do about it? That's where we are as a nation. And this is why democracy is so important, because if politicians understand that the people put them in and can take them out, the way they govern will be drastically different.
All right. Now, there are fears that Nigeria is slowly, will I say snowballing, or descending into a one-party state. Yesterday, even while the president did present the budget, I mean, there was a show of, will I call it solidarity support, where they sang the mandate anthem at the floor of the House. So my question to you is this. I know that you're a member of the Labour Party. Some of your party members even defected recently. Is Nigeria becoming a one-party state?
You see, there's a type of politics that creates these dynamics that we're seeing. There's a politics of the political elite and their peers, and what is good for them is good for them. To hell with the rest of Nigeria. And that's what you saw yesterday. Because I don't imagine a Bukola Saraki as Senate president and that kind of thing would have happened in the Senate, right? Where is their respect? Where is their sense of self-respect? Where is their sense of identity? Where is their sense of representing a group of people that send them there? How are they holding this government accountable, right? These are the questions. But you see, again, it goes back to the process by which people get into office. And then also, when you don't have strong, courageous people in a state assembly, you find that the majority, the culture of the majority just completely encapsulates those that are there.
You said when you don't have strong, courageous people. Are you suggesting that they lack political strength or will?
I think that a Senate that would allow something like that happen, I mean, politics is over. Campaigns are over. Your job is to hold the president accountable. It's not to be singing his song. Then what's the point of having a Senate? Might as well not have a Senate. Let's scrap the Senate. If the president is just going to come and you're going to be singing for him, when your job is to make the needs of your people known and hold the president accountable and be that stopgap between the people and the president. Because outside of them is judiciary. And for judiciary, someone has to take the president to court. And the president is immune. He has immunity. So you, the Senate, are supposed to be able to stand and look for the interests of the people. And if you are not able to do that, then what's the point of having you there? You're useless. There's no point.
All right, let's bring this down to Lagos State, which, of course, in the last election, you did run for the office of the top job in the state. That's the governorship position under the Labour Party. So far, what do you make of governance in Lagos?
I just give you an example of how a state assembly spent 200 million in a day celebrating a year that I imagine was good for them. You know, most Lagosians would say it was a very hard year for them. I don't know what they're celebrating, to be quite honest with you. But you see that. And it has just been more of the same, right? You get token projects here and there without any proper accountability of how much this project costs. You'll find, and by God's grace, we will find in Lagos State, a time will come where we'll open these books and you'll see that this bridge you got, not even a bridge, it's a flyover, a bridge crosses water. This bridge you got, probably you could have gotten, you got it for the price of 5, right? You're in Lagos and the inner cities are still, the bad roads still predominant there. Our youth are languishing in a lot of poverty. They don't have the skill set that they need. Human capacity development is at an all-time low. You're always hearing about how the government is doing this. There's a lot of newspaper headline policy making without really feeling the effect. You talk about transportation, but you see that the cost of this transportation is still so prohibitive. So people are not even benefiting or using it. There was a whole talk about water transportation. Throughout the year, we saw the new boats that they bought or made. At what price we are yet to see. But it has not been normalized. Meanwhile, this is a cluster of islands, right? That should literally, water transportation should be the main way we move around. But there's no thinking to normalizing it, to ensuring that people see it as part of them, part of being a Lagosian, right? And so we need a lot of work in that. And then healthcare is a complete disgrace, right? And so much more. Waste management is still the same. We're still getting our flash flooding. They went on a whole demolition spree earlier on this year, but places were still getting flooded because our canals are overgrown with weed.
Maybe we should even, speak more on that. The demolition across some parts of the state where some residents, had to lose their property. Some were said to have, violated, the laws and all of that. I would like you to speak more. I mean, you did run for governorship. Do you think maybe if you were governor, that could have been handled differently?
Oh, it would be handled differently because the people put me in office. I'm accountable to the people. My job is to ensure the quality of life for the people and only disturb it when extremely necessary. So I must have looked for all solutions to prevent demolishing a person's home. Because I know in reality in Nigeria, you can barely get a mortgage. People save their entire lives to be able to buy a house and just wake up one day and go and demolish it. Meanwhile, as government, if anybody that has built anything in Lagos, in the most rural parts of Lagos, the moment you cast a foundation, someone from government is coming to look at that site. Somebody is coming to ask for your papers or your documentation. So the government is complicit directly or indirectly for any building that has even made it up to a decking level. So how can they just absolve themselves of all the blame? That's one. Two, you are looking at our canal ways completely overgrown with weeds. You are looking at all our water beds and all our places that have, our mud plains and everything that should normally be left to just be like that, to be sinkholes for our water, to absorb our water. They are constantly being sandfilled by the governor and by the governor's friends or people that are connected. I mean, you look at Ilubiri and the effect it's had on Lagos Island. There are so many of them, right? So even those sink spaces are not even allowed to do the job that they are supposed to do in Lagos. Then you also have not created a drainage system that is mechanized or advanced enough to be able to get water out of the city. So you see that we are putting a very mediocre system. And instead of shoring up that system and making it more technologically advanced and having better planning for our lands and our waterways to be properly absorbed, you are demolishing people's houses.
All right. We'll definitely pick up on that, Mr. Gbadebo Rhodes-Vivour. But we need to go on a quick break. When we return, the show continues. Stay with us. Many thanks for staying with us. This, of course, is still Politics HQ on News Central Television. I still have the former governorship candidate of the Labour Party in Lagos State, Mr. Gbadebo Rhodes-Vivour, as my guest this evening. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
All right, let's go straight into the crux of the matter in Lagos. Now, even though we know that 2027 is maybe a few, years, maybe months away, I'm tempted to ask, are you still considering the top job, running for the top job in the state?
Certainly, certainly.
So you're still going to run for governorship
by
in the state?
God's grace, yes, yes.
Under the Labour Party?
I believe that we will find in the next year or so, the entire opposition must come together. So we'll see.
So are there talks about an alliance?
Oh, certainly, certainly. Most people that can stand and say, you know what, we're going to hold this government accountable, have all come together to say we have no choice. There's a level of state capture that has become so endemic in our country that you stand no chance if you don't come together, right? It will be very foolhardy to run a three-horse race the way it was done the last time. And when you add the results of His Excellency Peter Obi to the results of His Excellency Atiku Abubakar, they knock out the current president by almost 3 or 4 million votes. So it is in the interest of Nigerians and people that want better quality governance for everybody to come together. Because, I mean, everybody can see the level of state capture that has come, that is literally hanging over this country right now. And to do that, we need all resources that we can muster. And we're better off doing that together than separately.
So there is definitely a possibility of an alliance, but for now, under the Labour Party.
Yes.
I mean, currently looking at the Labour Party, right now there seems to be quite a couple of challenges within. Leadership to, of course, some members defecting. It doesn't really look like a party that is truly united.
Well, you know, first of all, I'll say that in every political party, you know, there are always issues. Even in family, siblings disagree. The most important thing is that people are trying to resolve it in a civilized manner. You're not hearing about assassinations or people getting thugs to beat up this person or burning things down. Everything is being handled in a civilized manner. So that's the first thing to point out. The second thing to point out is, as a party and the kind of rapid rise that it has not had enough time to be able to consolidate or really take in the ideology that His Excellency Peter Obi, who is our leader, embodies. And not everybody that rode on that wave fully embodies that. A lot of people that just joined the party because, you know, they could not get a ticket in another party, so it's very easy for them to go back to that party. But joining the APC, it's completely opposite. It's one thing to go back to another party, but to join the APC, it completely stands against everything His Excellency Peter Obi stands for, which is, you know, destroying waste in governance, right? Human capacity development, focusing on the people, prioritizing them. Nobody can see what is currently happening in Nigeria under this government and close a blind eye to that and say that you were obedient or you supported Peter and you guys believe in the same thing and wanted to lift Nigeria to that level. It cannot coexist, to my mind. So, yes, there are some defections that have happened, and it's very unfortunate. It's very, very, very unfortunate because Labour Party was supposed to bring a breath of fresh air and put the people first. And I would have loved to see a situation where in the Senate, when they were passing all these bills and, you know, passing bills that will get these expensive cars, that they stood up as a unit and said, no, let us buy cars locally. Even if it's a symbolic gesture that he did in the House, that would have really filled me with pride. Unfortunately, that was not the case. I feel, though, that if we had a president like Peter sitting, His Excellency Peter Obi, sitting as the president, a lot of these things will be different. It will be very, very different. Because, I mean, he'll probably get a car that's Nord or innocent because it's very about made in Nigeria. You as a senator are not going to be demanding for a Mercedes or a Toyota Prado, and then you drive to go and see the president driving a made in Nigeria car. So these kind of things, they might be small, but they send a significant signal, not just to the local market, but international markets as well.
I mean, talking about the top job in Lagos being the governor. Now, for some political observers and even economists, they will say for a mega city like Lagos, you know, that has most of the top companies in the country headquartered here, the residents, you know, living in Lagos running into millions, and a city that is seen as the commercial hub of the nation. Having a candidate like yours run the affairs of the state, for them, they feel is pretty much inexperienced politically. And that, I mean, some have even asked, does he even have a political trajectory in terms of him eventually being the governor of a mega city like this state? What would be your reaction or response to them?
So first, I feel first and foremost, the quality that I want in a leader is a leader that has empathy. And by virtue of the fact that I've run for local government chairman before in 2016, I ran for Senate in 2019, that's 10 local governments, and I've run for governor. Running is not just about coming on TV and talking. It's going to each of these communities and listening to people, understanding their challenges, understanding their problems, looking at problems and creating solutions, thinking through solutions. And that's the advantage of actually campaigning. Unlike the situation where we found ourselves in 2023, where a sitting governor did not attend any debate. Only when his party was defeated, we saw him become a hairdresser, an usher, electronic repairer, all in 1 week, right? He did not campaign. Now, by virtue of campaigning, you can come and stand at a debate and they ask you, what are your plans? What are the problems? What are your solutions? And you find, if anybody goes to watch any of those debates, you see that our plans and our manifesto, and not just our manifesto, because a manifesto is something you just write, anybody can write it. But my ideas, my thoughts, my solutions are world class. That's just the honest truth. And I've spent a lot of time thinking through all of these things. And aside from empathy, you want a person that has intellectual capacity, but also has a trajectory that says, I want to do the right thing.
So what do you have that you feel others don't have?
Well, the political experience that I have, right, in terms of campaigning and reaching out, understanding Lagos, right? Youth is also on my side. And the creativity of my ideas and solutions. I mean, just this year alone, 2 times when there was flooding and when they were talking about the 4th Mainland Bridge and how people have to go all the way from Ikorodu, come back to now get to the Bejuleki axis. People were just cutting out, and it was trending all over the internet, cutting out what I said in the debate and putting it out and saying, this is what Gbadebo Rhodes-Vivour said he would do. As opposed to having another long 3rd Mainland Bridge, create a belt road that's linking this side of Ibeju to Ikorodu, opening up that foreshore, improving the amount of revenue that the government can generate, reducing the cost of land because you're going to provide more land, and then connecting it so that more people you can decentralize the planning of Lagos. And lastly, it's about time that Lagos State had an architect that understood urban planning and design. We've had lawyers, we've had bankers, right? The planning of Lagos, the understanding of the creativity to solve the congestion that we have in Lagos is best in the hands of an architect. So that's something that sets me apart as well.
Interesting. Let's also talk about the issue of accommodation, because you also made reference to
it's a major issue.
Right now, for an average Lagosian, payment of rent
is a problem.
It seems to be a pandemic that seems to go unregulated. In a space of 1 year, in a space of, what am I saying, in a space of 2 years, a lot of residents in the States are complaining about the cost of accommodation.
Certainly.
As high as 100% of what they used to pay annually.
Even more.
Even more in many areas.
And now a lot of people are insisting you pay 2 years
in advance.
If you don't want it.
Exactly. And I mean, the shocking part is that this seems very unregulated.
Yes, it is unregulated.
So I want to ask you, what will you do? So
there are two angles to this equation. The first part of it is to make sure you increase the supply of housing stock. Now, you achieve this, for instance, by creating a levy or a development levy, development tax for social housing. So when you are building luxurious buildings, luxury accommodation all across Lagos State, a part of a development tax is paid and put directly in a social housing development budget that is then used to build housing for only affordable housing and not done in a place like an island where there's sand filling that's already increasing cost of the housing. But opening up Ikorodu, opening up Ibejuleki, right, and building affordable housing there. So that will increase housing stock. Another thing is to make sure that whatever housing is built by the state is given to the people in a transparent and accountable way, not a situation where you constantly are hearing that they're just selling properties among themselves, right? Whether it's a lottery system that's run transparently and accountably, and the public can actually benefit from it. This thing is not rocket science. You look at what Alhaji Lateef Jakonde was able to achieve in 4.5 years, where people that needed this housing stock actually got it. So that's one side of the equation. The second side of it is that we must ensure that there is a level of sanity that's brought into the housing market. From unregulated charges by agents and lawyers, some people are charging, and you know what is really bad is that is the people, the lowest income people that pay ridiculous amounts to lawyers and agents. Not so much when it gets to like higher level, higher middle class housing. You're talking about houses in Akonjo, in Alimosho, in Ajomi Feludu, 1 bedroom, self-contained. You hear the percentages that lawyers are charging. It's almost getting to almost 20. Yes, it gets almost 20, 30%. This must be regulated. So we must have a platform, right, where all agents and lawyers associated with properties are registered, right? And if there is anything that needs to be reported, it can be reported on there. And there's an agency that will look into that matter so that it becomes normalized that these are the charges, especially at that lower end level, because a lot of them, they don't even know better. It's just what it is, and they either take it or leave it. So you're saying that there should be some form of regulation? There must be a level of regulation. There must be a level of regulation, right? And while I understand that the country does not currently give people access to credit, and I understand that landlords want to get their money in bulk because they need to use that money in bulk, there must be a way, and I've started to see innovative banking processes, not really with the standard commercial banks, but with other kind of banks, that will allow for a tenant to be able to pay instrumentally, but they then pay the landlord upfront, right? So the government must encourage these mechanisms, right, to reduce the stress on the residents of Lagos State, because accommodation is a very big problem. I mean, you saw people paying 250,000 naira to live under the bridge this year. I mean, that was one of the things we saw this year. So the question is, those people, where have they been reassigned to? If they can afford to pay 250,000 naira a year, there should be accommodation that can cater to them. That does not have to be under the bridge. And also, we must mandate that affordable housing is built in wealthy areas as well. There is a situation where Lagos is being developed at the detriment and removal of people that are low income. But their staff, why should a staff be working for you and not have access to his family for an entire week? You're literally destroying the fabric of your society. You can design beautiful, affordable housing proximate to high-end places. And this must be mandated. I mean, even in England, there are affordable units in luxurious apartments that belong to the city council. All right. We need to go on another break, Gbadebo Rhodes-Vivour. When we return, of course, the show continues. Stay with us. Many thanks for staying with us. This, of course, is still Politics HQ on News Central Television. And I still have my guest in the studio, a former governorship candidate of the Labour Party in Lagos State, Mr. Gbadebo Rhodes-Vivour. Thank you for being on the program. Thank you for having me. All right. Now, one thing that did play out in the last governorship election in Lagos State, unfortunately, was a tribal narrative that, I mean, you were really hit hard. Some even questioned if you are truly a Lagosian. They questioned, you know, even your family fabric. It was very scrutinized. And I mean, what do you make of this? And do you also see that playing out again? Well, bigotry is the APC's stock in trade. It really should not have come as a surprise. I think they just went into overdrive because of how threatened and how scared they were because we won in the first election. You look at what they did to Jimmy Agbaje, right? This is a blue blood from Ikorodu. His ancestry to his grandfather is unquestioned. And they called him Jimmy Chukud. We're putting banners all around. I mean, you heard people threatening to drown people in the lagoon. Was that because he does not speak Yoruba? Was it because his mother is Igbo? What was it? So what they do is they divide you. Because they know if indigenous Lagosians, if Yoruba, people, other people that live in Lagos, everybody comes together to actually look at the quality of what the candidate is saying, they're in problems. So rather than leave that to be the norm, they divide you. They'll create, you'll see all of a sudden, you'll see somebody in one newspaper that will come up, something, Okechukwu will say, Lagos is no man's land. You know, he's been quiet all this time. All of a sudden, Lagos is no man's land. You see they create all these fake accounts on Twitter, just stirring up strife. And obviously, primordial sentiments kick in, and people start to get worried, and they always fall for it, right? But all it is just a distraction, keep you guys divided and scattered like rats, you know, when the light comes on, or cockroaches, while they are there stealing your commonwealth and using it to just, you know, to continue their control of the state, continue their control of the commonwealth of the state. Now, you have situations where we are even hearing that a father wants to pass Lagos State to his son, as though it's a kingdom, as though it's a family inheritance. And I cannot blame him, because one man had a situation where his wife was senator, his daughter was Iyaloja, and was producing all the governors in Lagos State. So, of course, he'll start to think that Lagos State is his inheritance, is his property, that I can, you know. So, for me, we as Lagosians, we as people that live here, need to understand that this is just a divide and rule strategy. Technique. We need to see past it, right? Because the fact of the matter now is that when you are a Yoruba man, you go into the market, you want to buy chicken this Christmas. If you speak Yoruba from now till tomorrow, that chicken price is still that chicken price. Your children cannot go to public school because your wife will not be happy. Why? Because public school is not good. No matter how you go and speak Yoruba at the gate of that secondary school or primary school, the quality of education in that school has not improved. If your wife is not feeling well and you go to any hospital in Lagos State, public hospital, and you'll find issues, you'll find inefficiencies. No matter how you speak Yoruba to those inefficiencies, they're not going to change. Now, that does not mean that speaking a language, being able to connect to people in their heart, because language connects to your heart. English tends to connect to the head. I mean, it can do either way, but there's a way that Yoruba can connect to something. Because it's speaking about tradition, it's speaking about culture, it's speaking about history. These things are extremely valuable. But we must also understand that we're colonized people. Nobody speaking in English in Nigeria or in Lagos woke up and said, oh, I want to speak English. It just so happens that we're colonized by the British. If we won the war and defeated the British, we will not be speaking English today, right? While there must be conscious determination to be able to speak a language, because it is a skill. Why not? Why not learn Yoruba, Hausa, Igbo, whatever language you need to learn, right? And I believe it's important. But let us not conflate it with the issues of governance, because these are the destinies of 20+ million people. And the people that have been managing for 20+ years, all Yoruba-speaking people, have not made the lives of Lagosians better.
All right. Before, of course, we wrap this up, let's talk about the obedient movement and, of course, Labour Party's new initiatives, particularly when it comes to the establishment of Diaspora Affairs Directorate and the restructuring of the mobilization department. We had one of the officials on this program speak about it. I can't recall the name off heart, but it gave a sort of overview of how they want to make it, you know, at the grassroots level, sort of more from just being on social media to being a reality.
Make it more structured.
Yes.
And that's what we need. You know, yeah, I know we were, during the campaigns, there was a lot of talk about we are the structure, which we are. But, you know, having people is like in physics, you know, there's a scalar quantity, there's a vector quantity. A scalar quantity is a force. But once it has direction, it becomes a vector. We need to structure ourselves because, again, the next elections are nothing like what we have seen before, right? Because of the level of state capture, because of what we saw in 2023, because of especially in Lagos, the level of violence against people, and it was not about Igbo people or non-indigenous. Anybody that looked like they were not going to vote for the APC was hurt. So many Yoruba people were hurt, right? So we know they've tried this, they've gotten away with it, right? A bully will always continue to do what a bully does until you stand up to that bully. So these elections are going very different. And to achieve that successfully, we need to have a structured resistance. We need to have structure all the way at the grassroots. And that's what they're building, and that's what they're doing. And I encourage it tremendously. I will support it, and I'm supporting it as much as I can.
All right. Thank you so much for your time on
Thank
the program.
You so much for having
Mr.
me.
Gbadebo.
It went really quickly. Good conversation. Thank you.
Rodes-Vivour, thank you once again.
Compliments for the season.
Likewise.
And try and enjoy this Christmas with this tipping we are facing.
Serious one. But of course, we'll try our best. Once again, thank you so much. Well, it's been a great one on the show today. In case you missed out, you can actually catch up for a repeat broadcast later tonight. You can also look out on our YouTube platform. That's News Central TV. You can choose to follow us also on social media with the same handle. It's on your screen, News Central TV. You can choose to follow me personally too at Gbadebo Rhodes-Vivour across social. Until I come your way again tomorrow, good night.